My brother-in-law beat me until blood covered the tiles. Sign or I'll break every bone. Claire sneered, you deserve nothing. Cops entered and stopped breathing. Even hardened officers trembled. I am Melissa Carter, 32, and I remember the night my blood covered the kitchen floor as if it were carved into my bones. My brother-in-law, Richard Hale, towered above me. Mortgage papers crumpled like a weapon in his fist. He shoved them into my chest and hissed, sign this deed or the house dies with you. His voice was thick with whiskey, his knuckles already red. My sister Claire stood behind him, her eyes sharp and cold like she had never shared a bed with me as children or whispered secrets under a blanket. She said, Melissa, you are nothing but dead weight. You ruin everything you touch, better you gone than us, homeless. Her words split me deeper than the blows I tried to speak. I begged her to remember our father who had died building this house brick by brick, and the mother who polished these floors with her hands raw from soap. Claire raised her chin and said, Father is dust, mother is weak, and you are the mortgage, dragging us all down. Richard laughed and his fist met my face. My teeth clacked like shattered glass. I tasted metal and dust. He slammed me against the counter. The plates rattled and fell like frightened teeth. I collapsed, but still clutched the papers, refusing to let go. He shouted, a smart woman knows when to surrender. I whispered through blood, a smart woman remembers what is hers. Claire spat on the tiles near my cheek and said, sign Melissa, or die on this floor. Richard grabbed my wrist, twisted it until the pen fell and jammed it against the papers. My hand shook so bad the letters swam before me. I bit into my tongue to hold back a scream, and the taste of iron filled my mouth outside. The dog barked furiously, and a car screeched to a stop. Voices rose beyond the thin walls, neighbors startled by the crashing and my hoarse cries. Shame swelled in my chest, heavier than pain. They would know, they would hear my family tearing me apart for a mortgage. I tried to crawl toward Claire, whispering, please, sister, please do not let him kill me. She stared down. Her voice colder than steel, saying, you are not my sister, you are a debt. Richard laughed and brought his fist down again. The world collapsed into a tunnel of buzzing light, the stench of sweat and copper and my own pulse roaring in my ears. I pressed my forehead to the tile, praying for air, praying for rescue, praying the walls would break. I did not collapse to surrender. I collapsed to live. I made myself small, stubborn as a seed, waiting for the crack in concrete. Richard shouted, pathetic. Claire sneered, worthless, and outside, footsteps rushed closer, even as my body curled in agony. A fire burned in me that whispered, this will not be the end. Hear me, I survived, and I will tell you how I turned their cruelty into evidence, how strangers became my shield, and how justice carved their names into shame. I was not born into darkness, though I learned how quickly light can vanish. My earliest memories are filled with warmth. I was Melissa Carter, the younger daughter of David and Linda Carter. My father worked as a construction foreman. His back bent by labor, yet his spirit unbroken. He carried the scent of sawdust home each night and always lifted me into the air until I squealed. My mother, Linda, hummed soft hymns while cooking beans on the stove and told me that kindness was our inheritance. My sister Claire was 3 years older than me, and in those days, she was my anchor. We shared a narrow bed when the nights grew cold, whispering about the curtains we would hang in our own homes someday, yellow curtains that let the sun fall gently across the floor. Those days ended the moment my father was killed. On a rainy afternoon, a scaffold collapsed at the site, and though men shouted warnings, he was trapped beneath steel and concrete. I was 12, Claire, 15. At the funeral, I clung to her hand and promised we would never let go of each other. My mother sank into grief that never released her. She did not drink or scream, but she faded like old paint on the wall. Bills piled high. Claire became the strong one, at least she pretended to be. She studied numbers with a fierce focus, insisting we would manage. I believed her, because she had always been the one who braided my hair and defended me from schoolyard taunts. But loss reshaped her. Claire began to resent me, whispering that I was lucky to be the baby, that I did not understand what sacrifice meant. I tried to help. I took small jobs, babysitting, mowing lawns, but the mortgage my father left behind was larger than any coins I earned when Richard Hale entered our lives. He seemed at first like a savior. He was confident, broad-shouldered, always arriving with polished shoes and quick promises. He told my mother he would look after us. He told Claire she was special, and she glowed under his gaze. At their wedding, I cried not from sadness, but from hope that our broken family might heal, yet within months, I saw the cracks. Richard demanded control over finances, insisting that Linda sign papers she barely read. He told Claire that Melissa needed discipline, not sympathy, and slowly, my sister echoed his words. By the time I was 20, our home was no longer warm. Richard's voice filled the rooms louder than my mother's hymns ever had. He criticized everything from how I folded laundry to how I spoke at dinner. Claire began to copy him. She told me I was careless, lazy, even when I worked late shifts at the diner. Gaslighting became the rhythm of my life. When I tried to point out their cruelty, they laughed, saying I was sensitive, saying I twisted their intentions. Each insult eroded the memory of yellow curtains until I wondered if I had imagined the sister who once loved me. I fought to hold pieces of myself. I enrolled in community college nights while working. By day, I scribbled poems into notebooks and dreamed of renting a small apartment that would be mine alone for brief hours in class. When professors praised my essays, I felt hope bloom, fragile but real. Then I returned home to Claire's cold glares and Richard's smirks. They tore at that bloom until it wilted. My mother, Linda, rarely spoke. Sometimes I caught her staring at the window, hands folded tightly, as if she too had become a prisoner in her own house. I wanted to shake her to beg her to fight for me, but grief had carved her hollow. The mortgage hovered like a phantom. Each month, Richard reminded me that the house was drowning in debt. He said he alone carried the weight, and that I was nothing but an anchor, dragging him down. I tried to pay more. I offered my savings from the diner, but he sneered, saying a handful of bills would not keep a roof standing. Claire repeated him until her words sliced deeper than his fists ever could. Pain became routine, yet tiny sparks of hope survived. Friends at school told me I was smart enough to write for a living.